While we're waiting, let's bring in Hugh Hewitt here. He's the host of radio's Hugh Hewitt Show, the author of The Queen, The Epic Ambition of Hillary Clinton, and the Coming of a Second Clinton Era. So, Hugh, we're keeping an eye on that event. If he, if he starts to speak, we may have to interrupt our interview, and then we'll come back and talk about it. So, what is your take on this presser that we saw tonight? Did he seem rattled by the scrutiny? I mean, usually he's a calm and cool guy.
I don't think he's rattled. I think he won the day, Don. I think when the West Point story started out as being this big expose of Ben Carson, following a narrative that he hasn't been telling us the truth. And at the end of the day, everyone's kind of telling me, I talked to Chuck Todd on my radio show tonight, yeah, you know, I got offered a scholarship, but it wasn't in writing. You're going to have Beckel on a little bit later. Beckel got offered scholarships. They weren't in writing. People can't remember the precise details of 40 years ago, but I have no doubt in my mind that Army officers said to a young Ben Carson, hey, come to West Point, it's free, we pay for your education. You have to do service in the Army, you'd make a great Army officer, and I have no doubt he said, no, thank you, I want to go be a doctor. Unfortunately, he went to the University of Michigan where they don't have football, but he nevertheless, I believe the details of his story, the general outline, and I'm very sympathetic to the idea he's being held to a different standard than the president was in 2008. And I would point out...
Why do you think that? Because we talk... Let's listen to this. This is from, which talks about what you're talking about. This is from this morning. We heard from Ben Carson. It's with my colleague, Allison Camerata, on New Day. Listen.
Yeah.
It's revealed that the president had to talk about that.
You all did with the President Obama doesn't even come close. Doesn't even come close to what you guys are trying to do in my case. And you're going to just keep going back, trying to find, he said this 12 years ago. He said, you know, it is just garbage. We have too many things that are important to deal with.
Look, Dr. Carson, it speaks to, obviously, it's an interesting story, and it is the seminal story of your youth, which is why people are interested. But mostly, it is about vetting, and it is trying to find out if candidates are fact-based, and if they can be trusted, and if they're telling the truth.
Okay, so you've done your job, okay? Kudos. So let's move on.
But okay, but last, does Bob exist? Is Bob a real person?
That's not the real name, but yes, he's a very real person.
And
I talked to him yesterday.
So you said he won the day. You also believe that the media didn't vet Barack Obama the same way. I remember tons of stories about Barack Obama, where he was born, his college transcripts, his pastor, the things he wrote in his books. Were they true or not? All of the presidential
Don, I'll be very specific. You've never seen his college transcripts. You've never seen his Harvard Law transcripts. You've never seen his Occidental College transcripts. You've never seen the video of Rashid
Khalidi. But most presidents don't release their college transcripts.
You've never seen the video of Rashid Khalidi that's been held by the LA Times since 2003. You never knew about Frank Marshall Davis until recent years. I don't care about that anymore. I'm not really interested in rehashing it. I'm interested in pointing out that Ben Carson's exactly
Hugh,
right.
But I agree with you. I agree
standard.
with you. So what you're saying there is that you don't want to rehash it, but he is rehashing it. And instead of taking the opportunity to answer the questions, he's sort of relitigating history, and he's not really answering the question.
No, he's not. He's not. Really,
you don't think he's deflecting?
No, he's not really. He is pointing out that there is a systemic anti-conservative bias in the media that subjects Republicans to a much more pervasive and endless series. Look at the scandals this week. Marco Rubio's American Express card, Ben Carson's West Point office. Over here on the other side, we have Hillary Clinton's foundation, the Teneo Foundation, refusing to answer questions of a Senate committee that have to do with Huma Abedin over the last 4 years. That's a Mount Everest of a scandal. Combine Rubio and Ben Carson, and you've got the Ben Hogan Bridge at Augusta. That's how that compares.
Okay.
So Mount Everest Democrat, Ben Carson, Ben Hogan Bridge at Augusta Republican. And we're spending time talking about Ben Carson. That's the media.
All right, so here's another example, though, of something. So as to what you're talking about, and again, it's from New Day this morning with Allison Camerata, and about Fox News. Listen.
Even if all the media tries to shut you down, which they have tried very much to do with me, but they can't, because the good Lord has provided me with mechanisms like my syndicated column and like Fox News. We'd be Cuba if there were no Fox News.
Now, as you point out, I did work at Fox for many years, and I do have many friends there still who are excellent journalists, but I'm not sure that even they think that without their reporting that we would be Cuba. You mean that if Fox News didn't exist, we would be a communist country?
No. Again, there you go with sensationalism. That's what you try to do. And you hope that somehow that will resonate with people who don't think for themselves.
Dr. Carson, you said it. I'm actually
the people
quoting
are a
you.
lot smarter than you think they are. They're a lot smarter, and they know exactly what I'm talking about.
Dr. Carson, I'm actually quoting, I'm not even quoting you, I'm playing your words. You are the person who said that there are a lot of people who are stupid and that without Fox News, we would be Cuba.
So, Hugh, seriously, how is it sensational to play a clip of what someone said and then ask them what they meant by it?
Because if you can't reproduce irony. What Ben Carson was saying in the Cuba comment was an ironic comment. I understood it immediately as an ironic comment. He doesn't mean we're going to be Cuba. He means that Cuba has a one-party system in which there's only one official news. Why are you answering it? He's not.
Why can't he answer that question? The way you're answering it, it's perfectly making sense.
He's running for office and he is exasperated. He's very exasperated with the media because he would like to talk at length. I'd love him to come on my radio show and talk at length. He's only been on a few times. He would like to talk at length about his issues. I'll tell you this, Don. He was at Colorado Christian University last week. 1,500 people came and listened to him give a speech. I think he believes that the media would be better serving the public if they would ask him substantive questions and give him 5 or 7 minutes. Now, that's not how we do it. And I think CNN's very, very fair in its coverage. I think they have.
But I think CNN would have given him as much time as possible this morning on that program to get his point across, but he simply didn't want to answer the questions.
But have you asked him yet, Don? Dr. Carson, what's wrong with Obamacare? If I want to give you 3 minutes, tell me what's really wrong with medical care in America today. What's happening in the world of pediatric neurosurgery as a result of Obamacare? That's the question he wants. Now, that's not a guarantee of getting it, but I think he'd be less exasperated if it was 1 for 1.
Okay.
And this West Point thing is just silly.
But you know, Hugh, you don't always get the questions you want, and people have asked him about Obamacare, and he has said that Obamacare is the worst thing since slavery. He has had plenty of time to explain Obamacare. You mentioned Hillary Clinton. He mentioned Hillary Clinton as well. Listen to this, and then we'll talk about it.
I want you to ask Hillary Clinton the same questions you asked me. Will you do that? Will you promise that you're going to do that?
Yes, of course. Of course we ask Hillary Clinton questions about her book.
Okay,
yes,
everybody heard it. Look, everybody heard it. We're waiting.
Dr. Carson, of course we ask Hillary Clinton questions about what she wants to do with foreign policy, what she wants to do with education, about her books. Of course we ask those questions. And
do you ask her questions
back.
about veracity of what she's done? I want you to go back and ask her some real questions about what happened at Benghazi. I want you to ask her, did her philosophy include not knowing anything about what was going on in all the foreign territories over which she was responsible?
We have asked Hillary Clinton so many questions. I even asked her if she was the original birther. We went through the transcripts, and CNN has done hundreds of stories about Hillary Clinton and Benghazi, the Hillary Clinton emails. We took the entire hearing of her being grilled by the House Republicans, gavel, and then analyzed it to death, and we still talk about it.
Well, let me give you a parallel. In 1994, Hillary Clinton said she had attempted to enlist in the Marines. She investigated it. I find that to be a completely absurd story. I don't believe it for a moment. It's never been vetted. She's also said she was named for Sir Edmund Hillary. How often do you guys talk about that? That's a nonsense claim on her part. She's made so many nonsense claims, but here's one question you haven't asked. Mrs. Clinton, you sent an email on the night of Benghazi to your daughter, Chelsea, saying it was an al-Qaeda-like terrorist attack. Did she have the clearance to receive that? Did you think twice about that? And by the way, the Teneo Foundation has refused to answer these questions. Will you, Mrs. Clinton, direct the Teneo Foundation to answer these questions? Yeah. So there are lots of tough questions that Hillary Clinton doesn't get, even though you and Jake Tapper have asked her a lot. I think Ben Carson and all the Republican field get far more, just in a quantitative, exponential number of difficult personal questions intended to destroy their candidacy.
But you know, just because someone makes a claim, and that doesn't mean that we're not digging behind the scenes to find out if it's true or not. They make bogus claims. You should ask these questions. And sometimes it's like, you shouldn't even ask the question because it's so silly. We haven't talked about the whole sponge thing in the head, because we think some of those things are beyond the pale.
Well, what
So
about the
that's-
helicopter? How about when she said she was shot at? We all know that was a
talked
lie.
about at length.
But right now, in the
the
context,
last time.
in
That
the
was talked about
context
at
of Ben
length.
Carson, in the context of Ben Carson's veracity, you ought to be saying Hillary Clinton's veracity has often been challenged. On the she'd been proven to be a liar in many cases. Marco Rubio called her a liar last week. Well, now, today, the Teneo Foundation is refusing to answer questions about her senior aide, Huma Abedin, in a very shady, probably, I believe, illegal arrangement with the Department of State. And
Yeah.
by the way, Don, that server was illegal.
Yeah.
That's the real important
Hugh,
national
I know,
security
but we
story.
talk about that over
Oh, no, you
and
don't.
over.
You don't talk about
Oh,
it
my
enough.
Gosh. There was a
Okay,
whole
here's
hearing about
here's a
it.
quiz. Tell me the statute under which it's illegal. I've said it on this show a number of times. 18 U.S.C. 1924. It is illegal
But
what
what
she
do you
did.
want me to do? Do you want me to go over and arrest her? I can't do that.
No.
I
want
mean,
you
we
to
ask
raise
her the
it
questions
with
when they come
Beckel.
on. But here's
I
the
want
thing.
you to raise it with Beckel
Hugh,
after
Hugh,
this.
I've
Say,
gotta
did she
go.
break the law?
I've got to
Okay.
go, and only because I want to listen to Ben Carson. If I don't do it now, I won't. I
All
don't
right.
have the time. But
Be
Hugh,
well.
Hugh, thank you so much. We'll continue to talk. I appreciate it. Hugh Hewitt, everyone.